An Alabama sorority has yanked its recruitment video from YouTube after getting a ton of internet backlash. One critic even called the video, quote, worse for women than Donald Trump.
We're getting ready to rush. Like, look at all the people already starting to line up.
The University of Alabama is the top sorority recruitment in all of the country. Rush consists of 4 highly competitive rounds.
Let's be honest, I probably would not be going to Alabama if it did not blow up on TikTok.
History. The culture at Alabama is fucking weird.
What were you filming for?
Not to be dramatic, but this documentary could be the end of Greek life.
He confirmed for us that no sorority invited her to join.
I mean, if we're just talking about on paper what kind of person that you would want in your organization, I think she fits it more than your average person.
If she'd been white, do you think she would have?
Yeah, I do.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Critical Commentary. I'm Taylor, and today I have a very, very special guest. I have Ryan, who was one of the biggest, honestly, to me, like presentations to the BAMA RUSH documentary. She's on here to just kind of give us some thoughts about, 1, the documentary, 2, just Greek life in general, and specifically Greek life at University of Alabama. So thank you, Ryan, for coming on the channel.
Thank you for having me.
We have been gabbing and just like having it and chit-chatting for a good like 30 minutes.
No, seriously.
But to kind of, I guess, like get us back on track,
Right.
I want to just know, like, first of all, what was the experience like of just being in a documentary, having a camera crew kind of come into a very secretive and like sacred space, and just like what that felt for you?
Yeah, for sure. Like I was saying before we started, like I've never been in a documentary. Like I didn't know what to expect. But like for all the like criticism that I know that Rachel's received, like the director, the producers, like the team, like everyone was so sweet and so supportive and so like just like family like you know, people like just showed up in my apartment, in my like college apartment, where like there was maybe one light on at any given time. Like they just like came in and made me feel so comfortable. They like talked me through everything. And like, quite honestly, the 2 people that I met first were Zach and Danielle, and
Okay.
they were pretty involved in that. And like, I just trusted them immediately. And so like that made everything so much easier, because like I didn't expect them to be making like an Animal House kind of Greek movie, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I knew they like cared about what I had to say, what other people had to say, like didn't want us to look silly or stupid or like crazy girls. Like I trusted them. So it was really easy.
Yeah, and to kind of just for people who may not have seen BAMA Rush, because I do feel like BAMA Rush is so much bigger than this documentary. It's a whole thing on TikTok. It's like a full phenomenon.
Oh
Do
yeah.
you mind kind of like explaining what the documentary was about for anybody who's like just coming on here for the tea and trying to just avoid watching anything else?
Oh, girl, like if you didn't see it and you have no idea like what we're talking about, like maybe click off, like maybe save yourself. So basically I guess, do you mean like the documentary or like BAMA Rush on TikTok?
Kind of both, because I feel like they're so intertwined to some
Right.
degree. Like you can't really discuss the documentary without discussing
For
how
sure.
big it got on TikTok before that.
Yeah. So I guess like to start out and like chronologically, like the BAMA Rush season 1, I think is what people were calling it, when like What Would Jimmy Buffett Do and like Dolly Parton something, like the girls that like made this popular. They were just girls that were going through recruitment and were posting their outfits of the day. And you know, like Alabama, they had the accents and like they were wearing like a lot of Shane and like
Yeah.
the pants store and like things that, you know, are very Alabama culture-esque, and people around the world, like sincerely, like around the world, were like, what the hell is this? Like, what is happening in Tuscaloosa, Alabama? And let me tell you, after 4 years, I still don't know. I really, like, I can't answer that for you. I wish I could, but I can't. But basically, like, people were, you know, just enthralled by recruitment and BAMA Rush and sorority life at Alabama. And so the filming, to the best of my understanding, kind of stopped at the end of recruitment. Like, girls got their bids, they, you know, ran home, and then that was kind of the end of season 1. Mind you, like, I was in the house, and so, like, I wasn't really keeping up with these girls. I was, like, busy, like, tending to my blisters and dabbing my boob sweat. Like, I was busy. But so I think that's kind of where it ended, but people were still hungry for more and wanting to understand, like, what all this meant. And so the documentary came, I guess, 2 years after the fact, if I'm remembering correctly, because BAMA Rush was my junior year of college. Rachel approached me my senior year of college. It would have been fall semester. So I was approached fall semester. I filmed almost all the way through fall. Right. Okay. So, you know, like, Alabama recruitment starts in the summer.
Yeah.
So you know, season 1 happened, and then almost immediately after that, Rachel and the team approached me and they were like, hey, we'd love to talk to you more. We'd love to, like, hear about your experience. And, you know, the documentary was kind of born, and, you know, now that just came out, last month. And, you know, what BAMA Rush, like, hashtag BAMA Rush, the documentary was, you know, following these girls through, I guess, before recruitment, because it didn't show any of recruitment, right?
Yeah, it was mostly like the pre-rush, like, getting the outfits together,
Right.
kind of like, because they didn't, you're right, they didn't get into recruitment, which I think
No.
was what a lot of people wanted to see. And
Understandably so.
yeah, which, yeah, I mean, I don't know why, because when I think of recruitment, I think of just, like, my hands being really sweaty and, like, my hands honestly hurting from clapping so much, and, like, losing my voice and just wanting to take a nap after bid day. Like, I don't remember any of the stuff that I think gets glamorized in Greek life.
For
But
sure.
I think that's definitely what they wanted to see. But it was mostly like them prepping, and then there's kind of like, you get to see one of them go all the way to bid day, but you don't actually see, because I believe 2 of the main people dropped.
Yeah.
And then the third person that did not drop just stopped filming with Rachel. So yeah, you don't really get to see a whole lot of that part of the experience. Yeah.
For sure. And I feel like there was, like, a big gap, and I think that, like, that's where a lot of people were, like, unsatisfied, because it showed these girls getting ready for recruitment, no sorority life, post-grad or, like, alumna experience. Because even at that point, like, I guess they were filming my fall and spring semester of senior year, but, like, by that point I was so tapped out. I wasn't even really in my sorority. I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, but I know what you mean. Like, senior year of being in a sorority is not the same thing as, like, your sophomore or junior year, when you're, like, going to all the formals and you're, like, paying attention to how much philanthropy hours you're getting every semester. Like, there is a different level of dedication, because you're kind of ready to just pass the baton to the next group. You're not really focused as much about, like, the ins and outs of your sorority at that time.
Absolutely. And I always think about Nothing New by Taylor Swift and Phoebe Bridgers, right? And they, you know, Taylor Swift, like, describing, like, the new, like, I know someday she's gonna come around, she's gonna, like, I'm gonna meet her and it's a fever dream. And, like, that's really what it feels like when you're a senior in a sorority, because you've got these 18, sometimes even 17-year-old girls, like, coming into your house excited to be wearing your letters, like, I'm gonna make change, I'm gonna be the next president. And it's such a hard negotiation in your brain of being, like, that old scraggly, like, wench that's, like, back in my day, being like, you don't know what they took from me.
You have, like, emotional scars at that point. And so I think it's like it's hard not to be jaded. And I don't think that's, like, just Greek life. I think that's kind of in any organization. Like, I was in other non-Greek life organizations while being in a sorority, and I felt that way about those things too. I was like, I'm ready to just graduate and get up out of here.
Seriously.
As far as, like, just, I guess, you did kind of talk about how this is a bit of a controversial documentary,
For
and
sure.
I definitely was already telling you, like, I feel like you can't not have a controversial documentary. Like, even Free Solo was controversial. Like, I think that what people don't seem to realize or like critically think about is that a documentary is always going to have biases. Like,
For sure.
that is the purpose of creating it. You're trying to show light on a specific perspective. So, did you feel like a lot of that backlash was warranted, or did you feel like honestly it was just more that people were mad that they didn't get to see a lot of door chants, you know?
Yeah, I feel like a portion of the criticism was absolutely valid. And like, I don't even want to say a portion of it because everyone's opinion, is their
Yeah.
own. I get it. But I feel like people were kind of out to just like see the worst of it because, you have, in my mind, three main camps. Like, women that loved their sorority experience saw this coming out being like, these are just like blue-haired millennials that hate everything and like they just want to tear Greek life to shreds, and like that wasn't true. And then there were the people that were morbidly curious being like, oh my god, like I want to see one of those girls sit on the dryer and like circle her flab, like I want to see it. Like, you're never gonna see that. That's the point. And then there were just the people that were genuinely curious. Like, I saw this online. I didn't know what this would be. I was interested and I feel like I learned stuff. And I think the third group probably came in with the lowest expectations, left with the most.
I remember being really like, I came into undergrad being like, I'm going to be a sorority girl. Like, I was drinking the Kool-Aid like on tap. I remember like my suite, we literally had every single sorority on these like big Post-its, and we would write pros and cons about each one before getting in because we wanted to be like, well, what's going to be like the ones for us? And like, I actually helped one of my roommates who never knew anything about Greek life. I prepped her for recruitment because I could not recruit that year.
Sophomore when you
we have to be sophomores at my school. You can't be a freshman.
I didn't know.
But I remember like I didn't have the grades my sophomore year.
So, I didn't have the grades my freshman year. That's why I didn't primary recruit. Yeah.
Yeah. And it like broke me inside. And I remember like being so emotionally torn up about it. And so a part of me was like, if I can't get in, I'm going to help someone else get in.
That's
kind
awesome.
of thing. Like, I tried to make lemonade out of the situation, and we ended up being sorority sisters, but like it's such a smaller experience for us because it was a liberal arts school where we barely had even 10,000 students. So I'm assuming it is a even larger spectacle when you're at a school that has that level of funding, like going into Greek life. So do you mind kind of like just talking about that? Because I feel like that's probably what everybody wants to hear anyways, is like, tell me about the recruitment process. Tell me about all that money that you're able to spend on like beautiful bid day decorations and like also the fact that you have these amazing houses, because I feel like that is what people really look at the most.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much money in the University of Alabama, period. So before you even get to the Greek life, just Alabama is like a massive cinematic universe,
It is, yeah.
Like, we're sponsored by Coke, if I'm not mistaken. And then like there's one other massive supporter that I like never remember. I want to say it's Ford, and I know that it's not Ford. Like, I know that's fake news, but like I feel like it's something that has the same vibe.
Okay.
I'm gonna like do research after this. I was clearly unprepared. But like the campus, when I was going to school there, I always felt like I was at summer camp. I felt like I was at this insanely funded summer camp where everything is well manicured, everything is within like a color scheme, everyone looks the same, everyone does the same. And I feel like that's why Greek life is able to survive in the way that it is at Alabama, because there is such a homogenous culture there. And then if you don't fit into that, like, you're just something else. And I wonder what life was like for They used to call them Jeeds. Did you call them that?
No, what is that?
I love how specific sects make up slurs. Like, what a concept. A Geed is a GDI, a goddamn independent, and that's what Greek people called non-Greek people at school.
Are you
We
for
started a
real?
slur. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, like, so we never had a slur, but I definitely know that there was a level of disinterest in people who were not a part of Greek life.
For sure.
Like, because that's how you got invited to all the best parties. That's how you got all the best internships. Like, I got some of the best, like, internship and job opportunities simply because I went Greek. And that, I think, was a lot of what propelled me to go into it, because I was like looking for that networking opportunity. But I never realized until I was in Greek life how it's almost like a superiority complex that develops.
Absolutely. I don't know if it was touched on, but I think it was in the documentary that people rush before school even starts. So girls are showing up to school like 2 weeks before the first day of classes to rush. And then the sorority girls that are already actives are showing up the 1st of August so that they can do prep and polish week, or work week, as a lot of people know it.
We call it work week, yeah.
Right? Yeah. We were supposed to call it prep and polish week in case P&Ms heard us. So that happens 2 weeks before they even show up, right?
Okay.
So by the time I moved into my dorm, actually Gracie, who was in the documentary as well, she was my freshman year roommate. Yeah, right? So funny. So, I moved into my dorm and everybody was already in. All of my roommates were rushing. And so for the first month and a half of school, I was a Geed. I was unaffiliated. I wasn't in a sorority. And I remember feeling so left out because, like, all of the sororities had group chats that were talking about like where the frat parties were, or like Friday, that's like an Alabama phenomenon. Like, I didn't have a house to invite my friends to on Friday. Like, I didn't have the letters. And when I would go on Tinder and like be talking to boys, he'd be like, oh, like, what sorority are you in? And I would have to say, like, I'm not in one, which, like, who cares what men think about you? But like back then I sure did.
I mean, I think that's kind of a part of it. And like, I'm actually kind of glad that you made that comment, because you said something that like really, really stuck out to me. And it was when they were talking about the ranking systems, and how fraternities create ranking systems. And it's so crazy how where you might be, your sorority might be at one school in a ranking, does not mean that it is the same ranking somewhere else. Because again, it's all about the men at that institution that get to decide who are the hot girls and who are the not girls. And my sorority Delta Gamma was new when we got there, when I was there. And so we were like, I guess bottom tier. I honestly don't even know where we were in the ranking, but I knew we were not at the top.
Gotcha.
You know, you know when you're at the top, and it's very obvious because you're also, I think, getting a lot more PR opportunities. Like, you're just being thrown at the forefront as far as like when you go to, what is it, like the club stuff? Like, did you guys ever do like club recruitments as well, where you would like appear during club week as well and like
get on board day?
Yeah.
So we were the only, I think it was us and AD Chi, who is who's like the National Christian Sorority. I think that we were the only ones that were tabling at Get On Board Day, which is like our equivalent to like what you're talking about. And it was so like so Sigma Kappa was new my freshman year, and it was so embarrassing having to be at those tables. Oh my God, Taylor.
So that's like considered like a demotion to be at those things?
Because what it was that like, so we were like at the tables and we were like raffling away like Yeti coolers, and we were like trying to give away things like just to get girls to talk to us, because like you can't have a sorority if you don't have members. And that was where we were for a period of time. And like Sigma Kappa for a while is going to be clawing itself out of that hole of just being new, which is no
Thank
fault
you.
of their own, right? But Get On Board Day is like traditionally for Jeeds, and then also for sorority girls, because some sororities require that you be in one other organization.
Okay.
So I remember being at the table, like wearing my letters at the table with my like Sigma Kappa and stuff behind me,
Yeah.
being like,
Yeah.
hey, like, do you want to learn more about our sorority? And it was so patronizing how the girls would come up and be like, oh my God, you guys are the new one. That's like so good for you. I'm actually an XYZ, but like, we're so cheering you on, girl. Like, you're doing so good. Like, you guys seem so cute, so fun. Like, girl, just like say you hate me and punch me in the face and walk away, because I would feel better than this. Like, please.
So because of my school being like a small liberal arts,
Yeah.
all of us had to be there. So
Oh,
it
really?
wasn't as much of like if you didn't have to be there, that was more of a sign on the sororities that did, because all
Okay.
of Greek life had to appear as a club like at these
Interesting.
events. But I do know what you're talking about. Like when you are a new organization, even if you're not a new, like even if like, because DG is like one of the original seven. They're
Totally.
old.
Yeah.
And just the fact that they were new on campus, automatically you're right, you have to claw yourself out of a social hole. And I think that a lot of where that happens, it goes back to the male gaze, because
Totally.
it's all about, do we have not just, the smartest and the, well, I don't think they necessarily care if you're funny, but like
No.
they do care about like, are you going to make us look good after graduation? And a lot of times, because you're 19, 20 years old, it's hard to look past beauty, and it's hard to look past like, do you fit in physically?
Yeah.
And so as far as like your experience of like that, like did you feel like once you joined Greek life that you had to kind of pump yourself up, or kind of like, I don't know, present yourself like in a way that
Totally.
you felt like was really inauthentic, but it was more so for P&Ms down the line so they would want to be a part of your sorority? Because
Absolutely.
I know I did that. My Instagram shows me so much about myself, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like it's like embarrassing to look at my old pictures, because I'm like,
Absolutely. No, I
that's not
totally
me.
agree. I mean, like, there was one. So, to answer your question directly, like, yes, there was such a pressure on us because Alabama is a really visual school and a very prominent school as far as Greek life. That we like our Instagram was something that was so near and dear to our hearts, and whether or not it actually was, like, you were gonna make it.
Mhm.
So, like, I remember posting with the sole intention of being on my sorority's Instagram, because like I was like, I am Miss Sigma Kappa, like I am this, like I love this, drinking the Kool-Aid, which, like, can we take a second? Drinking the Kool-Aid, do you understand how fucked that is? Like, insane. Like, do we ever like deconstruct that in our brains? Have you?
I don't know. Like, I really I don't, because I really, and this was something that honestly, like, I don't care if people know. I cried watching this documentary. I
Did
don't care if
you?
people had problems with like the gaps in the narrative, because there were just certain parts of different interviews that really made me remember my experience in a
Yeah.
way that like I had to look at it for what it was. And it was like, yeah, like I was never really like super feminine, always trying to wear makeup, always trying to like I mean, I was taking selfies, but like my selfie game, it got on point because of my sorority,
Good for
because
you.
but it was that pressure, like you almost become a mini influencer by being in a
Absolutely.
sorority, because the whole thing is your social media, even if it's not a part of the main page, PNMs are looking for
They're
you.
clicking through.
They're clicking through you because they want to see what you're like. They want
Hmm.
to see what your swag looks like.
Yeah.
They want to imagine themselves in your sorority. And sometimes it's like
Absolutely.
borderline FBI stalking. I remember being a PNM and just trying to figure out, how can I be the most accepted?
Yeah.
And I think that is where I lost a lot of who I was. And I think that's
Absolutely.
why I did drink the Kool-Aid, because I think I felt like no one was going to like me for me. No one was going to like me for being loud and obnoxious and a little bit over the top. And so I felt like I needed to be a mean girl. Like, I don't even really think I was as nice as I am now, because I think that was just something that I felt like I had to be. And then there's always those people who come in and they go, "Oh, well, I'm sorry that that was the experience that you had." And it's like,
Yeah.
come on, like, don't try to gaslight me and
Yeah.
say that maybe that wasn't you too, because
Mhm.
I think that, like, it's like you said, it's such a physical space.
Absolutely. Like, people like still gave out paddles and like things like that, but it was like to a degree, and it was interesting because again, we were like my pledge class, or I'm sorry, my member class, because we're not allowed
Yeah.
to call them
New
pledges.
member class, yeah.
My member class was the founding class, and so we had twins, which obviously like you're big in your aunt. So we had twins my freshman year, and then littles from that, and it was really interesting to see how like the sorority morphed, because our freshman year we were new. A lot of them were reformed Jeeds. Like, a lot of them went to Alabama without being a sorority girl for whatever reason, and then came into this thing. And so I think the sorority experience my freshman year was way more authentic than it was by the end of my sorority experience, because
Yeah.
even in those 4 years, like, yeah, we assimilated. We did. And nationals was so in our ear of like, you need to assimilate or you die. Like, that is what it is. And if you don't like it, leave. Like, that is what it is.
There is an implicit nature of like homogeny in
Absolutely.
sorority life. Like, yeah, not everybody has to wear Lily Pulitzer, but you definitely need to make sure that you have the right outfit for formal chapter, because I kid you not, I actually remember a friend of mine, we went through recruitment together, and she was just known for being very expressive in how she dressed. And like,
Yeah.
I always really loved that, because
Uh-huh.
that was something that I was too afraid to do. And I remember like she would come in dressed up as Barbie with like the poofy pink heels, and would just be herself. And I remember one of our formal chapters, we had like a parent ceremony. It was like a mom pinning ceremony.
Okay.
And I remember hearing her getting heckled because by other sisters, because she wasn't sticking to that code, that unsaid code. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One of the parts that I filmed but didn't make the cut into the documentary was, them talking about like, Southern fashion, because, when we were watching the OOTDs, they were wearing the ruffles and the bows and the sequins and all of that. And like
The polka dot,
the polka
the
dots,
lime, the pink, the lavender, the
Yeah.
seafoam. Yeah.
all of that. Like,
Yeah.
I think that we can have a video all on our own of just like Southern fashion, which like I'm not touching. So you can find another guest for that, because like that is not me.
No, thank you.
Thank you. But I remember there was a portion and they were talking about that. And I remember saying like, I realized it was probably about my junior year where I like had a striking moment of like really looking myself in the mirror and like looking at my dead, bleached, curl pattern ruined, ash blonde hair, and like my peeling self tan, and like looking at myself in this bright green like baby doll dress that I actually still own, like looking at myself in the mirror and being like what's going on here? Like, am I okay? And it really did like start to dawn on me. I think that's when the deprogramming started, junior year, when a lot of things happened. But by senior year, I remember being like, no matter what I wear, no matter what color my hair is, no matter what kind of Kinder Scott I've got on, like, I am never going to be the sorority girl that Alabama prizes, because I am not a size 0, blonde, tan girl. That is just the fact of the matter. And Alabama talks about diversity in a lot of ways, and they have a bunch of different initiatives and like things that they're trying to do. But fundamentally, Alabama does not want to be diverse. Alabama wants different colors, but they don't want big girls. They don't want disabled girls. They don't want queer girls. They don't want trans girls for sure. They don't want anything that doesn't fit their really homogenous, skinny, tan to a certain degree Christian girl. That's just the fact of the matter. And
it goes back to the traditionalism that I think is talked about in the documentary. And I wish they had gotten a little bit more into it because, you don't realize how even though you might see another girl that looks like you in your sorority, you don't know how much that girl has honestly assimilated to maybe be there. Because one, I didn't have locks. I cut out my locks before college because I had them before, and I cut them out because I wanted to be more palatable, not just to sororities, but to potential jobs at that time. And I actually had like so she wasn't in my sorority, but it was a different sorority girl that I knew. She actually said that I had pumpkin spice hair. Which at the time when you're in I had like the red-ish brown hair. And kid you not, you can look at my senior pictures on Instagram. My hair is falling out my senior year. I was pulling clumps out, not just because of it being dyed, but because I was trying to make my hair look more white. Like I legit remember putting some product that was not for my hair
that are going to be like on commercials one day if a loved one like has used this product, like you may be entitled to financial compensation.
Pretty much. And I was putting it in my hair. I was hairspraying my hair, which like for those of y'all who don't understand how black hair works, like you do not need to be putting hairspray on black hair, especially like 3C and like you do not need to do that. And I was doing it because I wanted my curls to hang enough so that other black girls would see me and think, well, she's black, but maybe she's something else, because I was like really trying to almost get rid of that side of me. And like it sucks thinking about how much time was wasted because of that.
Absolutely. You know? I feel like I talked about this and it didn't make it, but I don't remember. But I remember, and like this ties into like the male gaze and like all of that. And so like at this period of time, I was like seeing this guy, white, blonde, 6'2" guy. And I, had known girls that he had dated before me or like had screwed around with before me. And I remember being so insecure because like they were all maybe 5'2", size 0 or 00 because diversity, pencil thin blonde girls. And I remember going over to one of my sorority sisters' houses for a wine night, and she again was a little size 2 blonde girl, and me being like, and like thinking that this was a safe place, thinking that like this is my sister, she cares about me, like I've been to this girl's house like for Thanksgiving, like she loves me, like this is a safe place to talk. And I remember telling her like, I'm feeling so insecure because like I don't look like all the girls that he's like messed with before and dated before, and I just like don't like, I just wonder like if he really likes me or if he would prefer to be dating a little blonde girl. And I remember she was like, well, you're not even like black. Like you're like maybe like tan. Like you're just like tan. Like you're not even you're not even cocoa. You're not like caramel. Like you're just tan. Like there's nothing, you're fine. As if like being darker than tan wasn't okay, and completely invalidating what I said, and like further feeding into my understanding that like being black wasn't right, and that like I should feel insecure about this, but I guess I shouldn't feel insecure about this because I'm light skinned. What?
Right. And I'm not even light skinned, and I know that was something that I saw in almost every single POC member, was this needing to go back to that, like we said, that traditional aspect. And that traditional aspect always is the default of whiteness. And it's like people can argue that it's not, but when we're sitting here talking about how like a black mermaid is not how she's, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
like these all might seem like they don't make sense, but
Mhm.
they do. They all
Absolutely.
kind of come back to that same place of whiteness has become a default. And for a lot of people that did not grow up in diverse communities who've always been the only person that looked like them, it's really hard to now join a Greek organization and not still perpetuate that same really harmful ideology.
Me
That
too.
happened to me as well. Like, I remember having a frat boy that I was dating, and I only honestly was dating him because at that time I wanted to have that lavalier kind of
Oh,
experience
bless
because
it.
that was like
Yeah.
a whole thing. And I remember he told me, he was like, "Yeah, you're pretty cute for a black girl."
Yeah.
And that just, it was just like, what does that mean? Like,
Yeah.
what are you trying to say?
Mhm.
Because beauty transcends race, it transcends culture. Like, what do you like? What is? Are you trying to say that just because I'm black, I automatically had to pull myself out of an ugly space? You
You're
know?
smart for a black girl. You're well spoken for a black girl. You
Oh
dress
my
so
god, if
nice for
I
a
got
black
another,
girl.
"You're so well spoken, you don't
You're
even,
so
like, sound black."
Oh, oh my gosh. And I like brought this up to my white mom the other day that like that's a whole nother thing to unpack. Love that woman to death. Like, but I remember like being like, hey mom, like this is something that I like just recently learned that like when people say that I'm articulate, even if they don't say it, they're saying for a black girl. And that's so hurtful for someone that's worked so hard in their lifetime to be well spoken and, like, quite frankly, grew up in an abusive household where I had to be really intentional about the choice of words that I chose to make myself heard. And to know that that was like my story and that I've been so intentional about my verbiage and my choice of words for me to be reduced to, you're so well spoken for a black girl. Yeah.
Yeah. It also just implies that the default for blackness is none of those things.
Yeah.
You know, like it really does minimize our experience because, right, you have worked your butt off not just to be at that school, but to just be in general. And what might be coming off as a compliment to some of these people who are being truly ignorant. Like
Mhm.
the comment in that did make in the video where one of your sorority sisters was like, "Did your relaxer wash out?" It was like, girl, first of all, it's a lot harder than just that.
Yeah.
So do your research.
That's just not washing out.
Don't
What?
just Wikipedia that. But yeah, it's like, why do people even feel emboldened to say these things?
Yeah.
There was a comment where you talked a little bit about Divine Nine sororities and kind of like why you didn't really pursue them. And I feel like I didn't pursue them for the same reasons that you did. But can you kind of elaborate a little bit more on that? Because I feel like this is the perfect segue into that.
Yes.
I'm just like so glad that this worked out. Like
Yes.
I had no expectation of you reaching out
I'm
to
so
me.
sorry.
And no, like when I hit you up, I don't know what came. I was literally watching the documentary when I reached out to
No.
you, and I was
Really?
just like, yes. And I was like, I really want to talk to this girl. Like, even if she doesn't want to come on my channel, like, I just want to get to know her and like talk to her because it was just something about like how you and like it was just like how you presented yourself and you were just so real about it. You were just like,
Thank you.
yes, people are ignorant sometimes and people say these things. And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
I was like, she is saying the things that I wish I, as a 19-year-old, heard.
And that was my intention. That was absolutely my intention. And my therapist, when I was like nervous about this coming out, because we didn't get any information until quite literally not even a month before the documentary came out. We filmed this my senior year of college. I did not hear about this until nearly a year after graduating. So like the anxiety was pumping. And so my therapist like asked like, okay, when things get bad and people have commentary about like what you have to say, like, why did you do this? And the answer to that is that like I remember looking through Kappa Alpha Theta's Instagram and finding that one Black girl. I think her name was Tyler. And I remember what she looks like. And I remember the first time that I met her at a frat party because she was the first Black girl that I found on Instagram on a Panhellenic sorority. And I was like just digging through her stuff because I was so hungry to see a Black girl going through this experience that I wanted to be in. And like the intention of being in this was to give words to girls that are freshmen or incoming freshmen that are going to experience a lot of the things that I experienced, because things aren't going to change overnight, despite the fact that President Bell sure thinks they are. You know?
Yes.
And
Yes.
I wanted to give validation to the experiences that alumna had. And like, you know, I think that there was a lot that was cut out that I'm like sad that didn't make it, because I think there were things that, like, more words that I wanted to give to girls that had or would have or are having the experience that I'm having or had, sorry.
Yeah. No,
That was the point.
you validated, like, you honestly validated a lot of my experience in
So glad.
collegiate Greek life. And so it was like, yeah, it just really, so kind of to segue, but like still kind of in this, like, I grew up not around a lot of my own people. I even don't have the relationships that I really wanted to have with my maternal side of my family, because my maternal side is like big, happy Nigerian, lovely Caribbean folk. I love them so much. And I never felt comfortable there because I went to Montessori school where even though it was diverse, I was still the only Black person. Like, there wasn't that many Black students, even though there might have been more Latino or Asian or Southeast Asian students, but it wasn't necessarily us in a big group. And then high school was even worse. And so by the time I got into college, I did not know how to seek community with my own ethnicity. And I think a lot of that made me afraid of going Divine Nine.
Like, you know, AKA was the only, or is, I think still is the only NPHC sorority on Greek Row. So with all the beautiful mansions that everyone sees, Sigma Kappa is building their house. We were in the swing house when I was in college.
Okay.
A $21 million house. Insanity. But anyway, like, yeah, like I'm not touching that right now. But so, you know, we on Sorority Row, even in the swing house that we were in college, like, it's still, we had the formal living room and the informal living room and like the dining room and the chefs and all of those things. You know, even that was still beautiful in comparison to the AKA house, which, like, I don't mean to say like that the AKA house wasn't beautiful. It's a beautiful colonial.
But I'm sure it wasn't the same.
Totally, entirely different. And I remember when I was first like coming to the house after becoming a member, and walking past the AKA house and like wondering like, what was this house? And like, was this maybe like a facility house or something like that? And then finally, actually, one of the other Black girls in my sorority that actually ended up working for Sigma Kappa Nationals was like, oh, right. Oh, that's another thing to unpack. But she was like, oh, that's the AKA house. And I had a vague understanding of what AKA was. I knew the delineation between like NPHC and Panhellenic, but like, in no way was it ever a consideration that I was going to be in an NPHC sorority. I kind of touched on it in the documentary, but I was raised by my white family. I went to, the first time that I was in school with like a lot of Black people was when I started third grade in New Jersey. And at that point in my life, I was still in such a denial period of my Blackness because I just desperately wanted to be like my family, and I wanted to be like the friends that I grew up with, which just by a product of circumstance were also my parents' friends who were white. I grew up around white people. My mom had long straight hair, and my brother is white with like wavy hair, and the dad that I grew up with was white. And I remember being around Black people in high school but still feeling like, oh, but I'm not one of them. Like, I'm not, like, I'm brown. Until seriously, I think sophomore year of college, I called myself brown because I could not come to terms with calling myself black. I so self-othered because I just wanted to be like my family and my friends, and they were white, and I didn't know how to be black. And so I didn't even try. And so it was never even in my mind to join an NPHC sorority. And I say in one of my TikToks, like, that could have been such transformative period of my life.
Right.
I wasted 4 years that I could have loved and learned and embraced myself because I just wasn't there yet. And I regret that so much. Alabama, and I think at a lot of other big Southern universities, because of the history of the South and the racism that was and is and will be in the South, the tone of sororities are significantly different. And I think that NPHC, or the Divine Nine at Alabama, from what I understand being an outsider, was much more based on like values, personal and professional development, community building, and like more like togetherness. I feel like where there was always just like animosity and combativeness between sororities and Panhellenic, there was like togetherness and unity and like uplifting in the NPHC due to, you know, the systematic racism that exists and existed there, that like NPHC was created to support Black people, and, you know, and all of those sorts of things. And so being in a Panhellenic sorority versus a Divine Nine sorority were two different experiences. And you were, it's almost like being on black Twitter versus like white Twitter.
Yes.
Like, it's different. Like, it's just different.
It's different.
And I think that what I was looking for from like my college experience more aligned with my Panhellenic experience. I went to parties and I dressed up for things and I swapped with frat boys and I like did volunteer hours simply so I didn't get fined. Like, you know, like
Yes, yes. No, I
where I
remember
was.
that. It was like, if you want to go to semi, you better get those hours in, girl, because you don't want that APN coming in for you. You don't want that shit.
I would literally rather eat glass than sit on the third floor of the Sigma Kappa house for standards for them to be like, you didn't do your hours. What were you doing? I don't know. Going to college, doing other things.
Right, right. I do think that that is something that like is also very much, I remember this being a problem because while I was still in Greek life, I was also a part of her campus. Did you guys have that? Okay,
I know that.
so we had a chapter of her campus, and it got really weird because I think to some degree that chapter also tried to be its own sorority in a way, and there was a lot of contention with that. But I remember like dedicating so much time to her campus before going into a sorority. And then once I joined, it was so hard to maintain a lot of my outside organizations because it was like, I don't really want to give you my Thursday because I know that like every Sunday I have chapter for 3 hours and like you guys are going to want to like hang out for 2 and I have a test in the morning. And like, it just became like I really found myself like really distancing myself from a lot of my non-Greek organizations or non-Greek like obligations as a result of that, because I do think that there's like this, they don't say it, but I do think that Greek life is kind of like that professor that comes in and goes, this is the most important class you will ever take. And if you
like
do not prioritize, exactly. And you're just like, this is a gen ed, dude. Yeah.
Seriously. I also feel like sororities, and you know, everybody calls sororities cults, and they're right to a degree.
They definitely are.
They
totally are. There's like,
but I think that there is like intention behind like the aspects of sorority life. Like, I think our core values, which like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. Academic excellence, personal growth, service, and 2 others. But
I
you
mean,
know yours?
honestly, you and I are in different organizations, and those are pretty much what is in our
Right?
articles. Yeah, like it's
And I think it's like intentional because like academics, you don't have to be part of like an academic club because like that's what Sigma Kappa does for you. You don't have to be like part of other organizations that are like service oriented because you do that through Sigma Kappa. You don't have to be a part of like her campus or HIT or any of those things because we do personal development too. You don't have to do this and this and this because we'll do that. And then it's indoctrinating because like you turn around and you are Sigma Kappa. You are Panhellenic. Like you are that because you just become shut off to the outside world because all of your friends are in Greek organizations and like your boyfriend's in a frat and like all of your friends are in your house or they might be next door to you, but like you just exist on sorority row and you only venture out to go to class because that's just like, something that you're there for. It becomes your life and that's the intention of it. Because that's how you sustain these organizations because they're money machines. Like that is what a sorority is.
they are money machines. And like to know that you were VP of finance is just so awesome because I never got to be full exec. I was only on JCMT.
What's that like?
I know it's like, but I was the director of new members for my chapter, and
Godspeed, dude. I would hate that. Oh, good for you.
So what actually made me do it was I felt I wanted to be different. I wanted to be different and I wanted to like really cultivate like genuine relationships between my new members.
That's awesome.
And actually I saw like a few of my new members who are still friends and I don't like to be like I did that, but I do.
You did.
I
did.
I think
only you.
It was only me. It was only me. Thank you for your friendships. Thank you. Give me all the cred. But no, but it really did make me happy seeing that because I was like, no, that's what I want. Like, cause I think that when you do have to dedicate that much time to being around that many people all the time, like you do not realize how much once you join a sorority, you are like a part of that sorority. Even when you're dreaming, you're like dreaming about chapter or dreaming about initiation and like, did you bring the right underwear to initiation? Like, because like those are things that like I know the documentary doesn't really get into, but like those are things that are very much a part of it. It's very small minutia things that end up kind of controlling a lot of your life.
What about like the virginity core that happens in sororities? Like I don't know about like DG's initiation ritual, whatever. And like I'm not gonna like dish Sigma Kappas because I have not been stripped of my alumna privileges and I am towing that line.
Probably both are at this point.
Right? But there is like such a bizarre virginity aspect. Like you were talking about oh god, what's it called? It's when you were talking about your boyfriend, Bella, what do you call it? Lavalier, like lavaliering.
Yeah.
But like, Sigma Kappa and like, I think a lot of sororities, like perfect whites, like you have to have your initiation whites, like this virginity aspect of sorority life that like purity and like young womanhood and like all of that, like really does feed into like the Christian core, like weirdness.
Yeah. It's very like maiden oriented.
Right?
Yeah. Cause like, I know, I don't even know if I can say this because it's an initiation thing that we do. I probably can say this. You have to be in your purest form.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
Of like initiation. So like, you're kind of right. Like everything needs to be crisp. Everything needs to be like, so we wear black. Like after we're dry. I know a lot of people like tend to wear white, but we would wear black. I don't know if that was like just my chapter or if that was like something that DG just does all the way through. But I do know that is something they preface to you. And like, I remember having to be as a new member, like, I can't call myself a new member mom because that goes into the whole like, like the pledge mom, like
the
thing,
rebrand.
Right. But like I still have people texting me calling me mom. So it was like it was the weirdest thing. I don't really think I loved it, but I remember having to explain that to people. And I remember them all kind of being like, what? Because it doesn't make sense, because I think it's like the opposite of what you're expecting when you go through
For sure.
recruitment.
Absolutely.
You know, like you're looking at cake, you're looking at all kinds of makeup and flair, and it's the complete opposite at that point.
Yeah.
But I do remember, like, during one of like our parent thingamajiggies that we, because there's always like a parent thing that they always have for
because that's where the donation
sorority.
dollars come from.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I remember, like, one of the VPs was speaking, and she definitely made a comment about how, like, you are going to be there for our most important aspects of our lives. You're going to be here at graduation, at our wedding, our first baby. And I was like, I'm about to be a crotchety auntie, like, at 30. I'm not trying. Why are these our big days? Like, why are we still like prefacing these? Like, what about my first PhD, my third husband, my
I was gonna say my fourth house, but you went straight for third husband. Good for you, dude. Good for you. Again, like, with that, like, that verbiage that we like to use, like diversity, like, what does diversity even mean when you're not willing to change the core tenets of your organization? Because, like, let's talk about how, like, a significant portion of women will never have the opportunity to do what I did, because a sorority is $8,000 a year in, like, the mid-range, not even the high range. Like, you don't, like, you exclude such a large demographic of women just due to the inaccessibility of the organization. And that's the point, is they are supposed to be elusive and, like, aspired to, and, like, you're supposed to, like, have, like, the coolest sisterhood activities, and, like, your bid day is supposed to be the biggest and flashiest because it's something to be aspired to. You don't care about diversity. You want different colors so you can show them on your Instagram. You don't care.
Yes. Did you ever feel like your image on, like, your sorority's Instagram was just used for, I mean, like, obviously, because, like, why not? But, like, like, why not use that beautiful face? But
no, like, I like to think because I have, like, beautiful skin and a big butt, but, like, I know that's not the case. No, I used to live with our VPCO, who's, like, our, like, the head of PR. So, like, we have a PR chair, and then VPCO, like, oversees her. And I remember, like, she was explicitly told by someone, I feel like it was still when we had nationals around, if I'm remembering correctly, but she was explicitly told, like, hey, like, you need to ask Ryan to, like, be in a photo shoot because we haven't posted, like, anyone diverse recently. And you can go back on the Sigma Kappa Instagram, and you can scroll back to that picture of me on my computer, on my laptop. And they posted that because we hadn't had someone of color posted recently. And you know what else I'm bad about? Is because did you watch New Girl?
Oh, yeah, of course.
So, Jess says pink wine makes me slutty.
Yes.
I had a sticker like that on my computer, and they made me take that off to take the picture.
For the photo.
I forget. I think I just talk mess on the internet when I open up my TikTok app. Like, incoherent, just say anything disease is, like, my brand. And so if you remember Alpha Phi, like, Alpha Phi just be doing things. Like, do you remember Haley Barber? I can say nigger because I'm from New Jersey. Do you not remember that?
No, but I do remember a chapter of AFI near my school getting in trouble because they had a Black woman in their chapter, and they gave her, like, a very racist superlative. And I remember that being, like, all over the internet and everyone talking about it.
That's not subtle. Like, let's be clear. Like, what happened there was, like, not subtle. But I wish that it was, like, not as egregious as it was at Alabama. So, Haley Barber, like, that happened the year before I came. But then my senior year, I don't think I have the picture anymore, but essentially the exec group chat of AFI at that time were talking about, I don't remember if it was, like, a member or, like, what the situation was, but they were talking shit about this Black girl, and they were like, it smells like weed and, like, like edge control in here. Like how these white girls knew about edge control, frankly, I have to give them props. I have to.
I know where it came from. I can tell you where it came from. It came from their fetishization of the Black fraternities.
Yeah.
Because that was definitely a thing.
To circle back to like the Instagram, because like Instagrams are so visible and so curated and so important to the sorority. When Alpha Phi went viral for that group chat, at the time, our PR girl, who immediately unfollowed me upon me graduating, good for you, girl. But she liked Alpha Phi's Notes app apology from the Sigma Kappa Instagram. And for reference, the only two Panhellenic sororities that liked it were us and AD Chi, which is like the nationally Christian, generally right-leaning sorority. Like, that is such a statement. And she did that like of her own volition, like by accident. I lost my mind. Taylor, and you know what? You pick your battles. And that was the battle that I was picking that day. And I lost my mind in the Sigma Kappa DM being like, hi, I don't know who runs this, but keep your own political opinions off the main page. No one else liked this. Do you understand the commentary that you're making? And like, God forbid, like, I posted a dumb video of me in my letters having a breakdown on the internet that like got taken to like the national level. But Sigma Kappa at Alabama, one of the most like visible, notorious chapters of Sigma Kappa, publicly likes a Notes app apology about an overtly racist situation that happened from a notoriously racist sorority on Alabama's campus. Crickets. But like, thank God they intervened when I posted my TikTok, right?
Right. And I think that like that is, again, it goes back to like this double standard, as it goes back to the homogeny that we've been talking about this entire time. Because again, like we could literally like close our eyes and just like pick something, and it's always gonna go back to the homogeny of Greek life. Not to necessarily take away from like people who join Greek life and they don't experience that, but I hope you don't.
Like,
I hope you don't either.
I talk about my experiences, and then like Black girls on the internet are like, well, I was loved by my sorority, and like I feel like they expect me to be like, okay, well then you didn't really like do it. Like, girl, I'm so glad you didn't. I'm so glad you didn't experience that trauma. I am so glad. I don't want you to. I'm sorry that you did. I don't want you to.
Right. And I think that like, if any, like, honestly, I hope that the biggest takeaway from just you coming on here and also just us talking is that like, we want to share our experiences and we want to share a truth, but that does not have to be everyone's truth. And like, that's okay. And if anything, that's great. I would love if like down the line, if I decide to have kids, you know, if the planet doesn't combust, that if my child was like, I want to go Greek and I want to go into the sorority that you went into, I'm not going to tell them no. I'm not going to be like, don't do it because my experience was horrible. Yeah. But I also don't want to lie to them either. You know, I don't want to be like, this is all going to be like a fairy tale, because I think even with white girls who go into these sororities, they do have this idea of like it being a fairy tale. And something that I really wish the documentary had gotten into was kind of how like rape culture ends up being, unfortunately, a really big part of Greek life. Do you mind, like, is that like a topic that you would feel comfortable like discussing? Because I remember, was it Holiday?
Yeah. Roofied 3 times.
About, being roofied 3 times. And I have friends who had that problem. I don't know if this goes back to that ranking thing, but like, what was that like at Alabama? Because it is a big school and it is a big football school. So there is like that partying aspect. Whereas like, I was at a moist campus.
A moist? What?
We
I'm
weren't a
begging you
wet
to
campus
explain.
and we weren't a dry campus. We were a moist campus.
Okay, so first of all, federal prison. Federal prison, no chance of parole. Actually, the prison system is like regulated slavery. Like, I'm not dealing with that today. Like, I think that's like another, like, that's not for today.
That's a whole
But
other
no,
video.
federal prison. Going to these parties, and I remember the first time that I went to a Pike party, which nationally, Pike has a reputation. What I was like alluding to is like whenever, like, even my friend that went to U Delaware, Pike spikes. That's like, that is the thing. Or SAE is sexual assault expected. That's like what, like, there are like jingles. Or like, you know, Deke, oh my God, it's so terrible. Deke at Alabama every year schedules a swap with like who they deem to be like the bottom sorority. So like they get excited to like have a swap with Deke, which is like an old row fraternity, and then they cancel it like the day of or like the week of, just like to have like a little silly haha, like just horrendous like things like that. And like, you know, I thank God, like hand to God, thank God I don't have the sexual assault stories that a lot of women do from college. I do, you know, have an understanding of like the performative sex that happens in college, because like, you know, you want like the frat bros to like talk good about you and like have good things to say about you, or like invite you and your friends to their parties, and like just the performative sexuality that exists there, because it is like, it's such a small community. Like, it's egregious how many people know each other, because I think the Greek population is only like 13% of the school. Like, it's a surprisingly small amount of people as it compares to the entire college, but it is such a small, close-knit community that like, if you say no, or you don't do what they're asking for, or you're prudish, or any of those things, like that doesn't just stay between the two of you. And that, quite frankly, then goes back to your house.
As far as like just what the documentary became, do you feel like at the end of the day, it was a misrepresentation of really what it was trying to get at? Or do you feel like it did what it came to do, even though there might have been some paperwork, some red tape that might have like really hindered what it could have gotten into? Because that rape culture thing was just so quickly, so fast. And I really wish they had stayed in those areas. So did you feel like there were just some spots that just might have been kind of taken away just because of, I don't know, Greek life, or just how like Alabama wanted to be perceived on, you know, in the documentary?
I feel like it was a representation, and I think that it was, again, that's why I like kind of divided it like the perception into different kind of camps, because like I feel like it was underwhelming to people that have been in Greek life in some capacity, but especially to people that went to Alabama, because all the processing that people were experiencing watching the documentary, like people that were in Greek life, that's like what we did freshman year, first semester. So when you watch that back, it was like, all right, like been there, done that. This is nothing new. This is nothing interesting. But to people that weren't in Greek life, or didn't go to Alabama, or like maybe like we're in another country where this just isn't something that happens, I'm sure it was really interesting and like crazy. I remember my friend sitting on the couch being like, are you okay? Like, are you okay? And the answer is like, I don't know. And, you know, so I think that it was a representation. I think it touched on aspects of the sorority experience. I don't think that it went as deep as people wanted. And I don't think it went as deep as, you know, like it could have as far, but I mean, like everything has a time cap. Everything has like, you know, a maximum duration of like interest, you know, like people don't want to sit around for a 5-hour video. I'm sure it could have been a multi-part series, because they want you to grow and they want you to evolve and they want you to blossom. but it's like you're blossoming within like this really tight little cube of like femininity, like proper, all of these like additional constraints that they give you, and you want to get bigger and you want to, you know, be different shapes, but you're growing within a cube. And if you break that cube, that's your fault. But then you look back at them and you say, well, you wanted me to grow, you wanted me to evolve, you wanted me to question things. But you know what? I was only supposed to grow and question within those constraints, right?
Yeah. Or after this documentary, like a lot of people that were being interviewed were obviously amazing, but I think what just
Absolutely.
made me like really drawn to you was the fact that I felt like you were coming into Greek life with a lot of the same like background that I had and like just perspectives that I had. And I felt like that wasn't something that was highlighted enough for me. Like, I think that if I were to talk to other Black girls now, I would have a really more comprehensive way of talking to them about Greek life. And you did it. And you did it on camera and you did it for HBO. And I
For
just
HBO.
for HBO. And I want you to know that like wherever you are in your life and wherever you are in your journey, I hope that you realize that you really did touch a bunch of us. And like, I'm not even a PNM, and I was really moved by just like your authenticity and like your willingness to just put yourself out there. And so I thank you so much. And I hope that like we can always continue to
Oh
like
my
just
God.
share like stories and even
Yes.
outside of Greek life, like just continue this relationship because you are such a unique and one of a kind person. And I'm just so grateful that you came on my channel.
Well, and I want to like thank you as well that like, you know, I like look at you and, you know, like to be 23 and talking to a woman that's like in a different part of her life, but had such a similar experience to mine, different but similar. And to hear that I wasn't alone, because I did feel alone for a lot of my sorority experience because there were other Black girls, but you know, they had different experiences. And I think that we forget sometimes that like the Black experience isn't a one size fits all experience. And it's like, it honestly has been so healing to hear that we had similar experiences and like to hear that you made it out on the other side too, and that like there is a place of healing at some point, and to know that like, and like we were talking before, like God doesn't put you in hard things just to put you in hard things, you know? Like there is a point of growth and a point where you turn back and you look and you're like, holy crap, like that hurts so bad, but I am so proud of who I am now.
Before I let you go, are there any like projects or anything that you're working on? Is there a place where people who might be like interested in just seeing what you're doing want to follow you?
You can follow my TikTok at your own risk. I think it's bubblegum1577, which was my screen name in elementary school.
I love that.
And then on Instagram, I'm at Ryan Press. But also like I fundamentally think that people should not have podcasts, but I would start a podcast with you. Like I think of all the people I would be interested. But like men, no, I think that like we should stop selling microphones to them. Like, I think that time in society has passed, but I would contribute to the problem with you.
No, I would listen. We might have to talk about that.
We'll see what the people say.
Yeah, let's see what they say. Yeah, because this is like, if you have not seen BAMA Rush, please go watch it because I think
at your own risk.
At your own risk. Yes, there are some narrative issues. I know that that's the biggest controversy of this movie is the narrative, but like, I think at the end of the day, like watch it for the women and the people that put themselves out there and were allowing themselves to be this vulnerable. And I think that's what I loved about yours the most was you just were not afraid to be vulnerable.
Thank you.
So no, thank you so much. I'll definitely make sure to plug all your stuff down in the thing. But please, if you have seen BAMA Rush, what did you like about it? What you didn't like about it? If you don't like it,
be so nice.
Yeah, be nice in the comments. Like at the end of the day, I know that like we talked a lot of trash, but like this is still supposed to be a safe space. I want people to be very respectful. We will not tolerate any type of like hateful commentaries, but because this is critical commentary, not hateful commentary. Okay.
Amen, girl.
But if you also want to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, it is at CriticalCom with 2 M's TV. And again, thank you, Ryan, for coming onto the channel and for talking to me about BAMA Rush.